Welcome to the What I Meant to Say podcast. I'm your host, Wendy Jones, and I started these conversations because life doesn't give us do-overs. So this is a space where we get a chance to reflect and tell our story again, with more grace for ourselves, and hopefully make us all better for having listened. This week I caught up with Mike Hagensick, a special ed consultant and a former college swim coach. Mike and I met through E3 Collective and his mission to connect students and athletes of all abilities with their own path to high performance in their lives. Mike is also a husband and the father of 4. With 2 sets of twins, 4 and under, I was lucky to get some time out of his busy schedule to have this awesome conversation about connecting the dots between excellence and inclusion. Well, I'm super excited to have this conversation today. I've been looking forward to it. And
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, so I'm here today with Mike Hagensick, or Hagensick. I'm saying your name wrong. I'm sorry. I've been on Mike's podcast twice before, and I was really excited to have him on here today because we met over something that's really near and dear to my heart, which is water safety for everybody, but really your program is for special needs kids. And I have my own story of almost losing my 2.5-year-old, who is now 14, to a near drowning. And it was obviously a life-changing experience for me, and it was a miracle. So knowing that when I saw you post on Finding Mastery, which I know both of us listened to that amazing podcast, and I saw you post that you were raising money for that, it really hit home, and that is where I'm pretty sure that's where our relationship started, and we started this conversation about, special needs and special education and high performance and how they're not really all that different. So, my hat's off to the work you do, and I'm really happy to have you here today, Mike.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to have a conversation again, and I feel like every time we connect, great things come out of our conversations. So,
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your background, how you got into special education.
yeah, so I think like many people, it's a culmination or a convergence of a lot of different life events. I grew up in small town Iowa. Ironically, I'm actually back in that small town again. We just moved back last summer. My mom was a teacher, though. She's taught every grade, including early intervention, birth to 3, except kindergarten. That's the only grade that she has not taught.
Wow. That's a
She's
track
taught,
record.
yeah, it is. It is. So she's taught general education, special education, and like I said, early intervention. So school education has been a huge part of our life as a family from the very beginning. And I, for me, I saw firsthand the impact that she made on kids. I learned from her right away the importance of education and education for everybody. And for me, it was kind of a winding path to begin with because my first real career interest was coaching. I remember, oh man, I must have been 12 or 13 at the time, was when I watched the first that I can remember first big international swim meet on TV, and at that time I was a competitive swimmer. I've been swimming since I think 7 years old, and I was watching these athletes, and I distinctly remember almost being more interested in the storylines that they would, share about these athletes, whether it was Michael Phelps or all these other high level athletes. And I was really enthralled with the lifestyle, the commitment, the pursuit of excellence that these athletes had. And I was almost more consumed by those details than I was the actual races. I love the races; those are fun to watch. But that really sparked my passion for,
Yeah.
at the time, what I thought was swim coaching. And really through high school, through college, swim coaching was something I did and I loved, and I did for a long time. And when you're going through high school and college, you don't really know what you want to do. And I also knew I had a love for teaching. It was, I started to get my first taste of teaching when I was coaching the youngest groups on the swim teams, doing swim lessons. So you're working with kids, 2 years old to 8 years old, from learn to swim to just learning how to competitively swim. And so that was really my first taste of teaching. And coaching was really where I got my blend of teaching and working towards that high performance. And so during college, I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go. If I really wanted to dive fully into coaching and start, doing exercise science, or if I wanted to go into teaching. And so I eventually took the teaching route, major in elementary education, and then, but I was still coaching at the time. And when I first left school, I started teaching as an academic interventionist as a part-time position. And knew I was getting married, so I needed to actually get a full-time job with with benefits and all those good things. And so I got a job as a fifth grade teacher at an inner city elementary in a town in Iowa. And but I was still coaching, and I kind of worked my way through that, and it was a great experience as an academic interventionist, and in a school that had much lower SES. When I was teaching fifth grade, I think we had like 97 or 98% free and reduced lunch, and that really drove my passion for problem solving for kids who needed a lot of love and a lot of support, and understanding that all these children have so much potential and they have so much opportunity, but we have to create those opportunities. We have to open those doors, and we have to give them the tools and the skills and the resources and the strategies to move forward on that path. And with that being said, I had this opportunity that opened up in the town I was living at the time for a special education teacher. And I knew a little bit, I had some special education classes in college. I had an amazing professor my first year in college, Dr. Ford, and he taught me the needs of diverse learners. And he really celebrated neurodiversity. He really celebrated the differences. He really celebrated what kids can do no matter what label or diagnosis or preconceived notion other people might have. And that always stuck with me. And so, I took this job. It was in my hometown. It was at a great school. And at that point during my interview, I really knew how they talked about the program, how they talked about the position. That was really, for me, the perfect blend of everything I want to do in education. And I was still coaching at the time. And it was really during that time as a special education teacher, teaching students with significant disabilities, that I realized it wasn't teaching and it wasn't coaching necessarily that I loved. It was really helping others and helping others achieve what they thought they couldn't. It was helping others achieve to their highest potential. And I think when I was younger, especially in college, right out of college, I was so focused on the actual career, the actual position, the title, whatever that was. It took me time to really understand that my purpose was helping others and maximizing others' potential and supporting and supporting that process. And whatever vehicle it was, it didn't matter. The vehicle could have been teaching, could have been coaching, could have been something else, but those are just vehicles to drive my purpose. And I've had that conversation with college athletes when I coached college, is that don't get so caught up in the specific career title, the specific position. It's really about what are you looking for out of a career? What is your purpose? What is your higher level purpose? And there's a lot of different vehicles to get there.
Yeah.
to meet that purpose. And it doesn't have to be a specific role at a specific company. Figure out what your purpose is first and be open to all sorts of different vehicles to go down that path. And so, as my time as a special education teacher, I had a really defining moment, and there was a lot of moments along the way. We started a middle school cafe, and where our students would make breakfast and coffee for the staff and deliver it, and they really um, found a huge purpose outside of we still spend a lot of time with reading and math and writing and science and social studies and all those pieces, which are awesome, but the cafe that we started was an opportunity for them to really showcase their strengths and their abilities and connect with the school in a different way that they didn't have before. And that was kind of the start of the journey. But the probably the most defining moment that I had was we were getting ready to go on this field trip, and we were going to like a state park, and they could choose from, I don't know, it was like 15 different activities, and they got to choose their top three. So we were sitting in the auditorium at the time, and they were going through the slideshow of all the different options, archery, fishing, trying to think what else, like hiking, canoeing, kayaking, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so I had a student with cerebral palsy, and she was in this big motorized wheelchair and had some limited motor skills. And we got to the canoeing and kayaking, and she just lit up. And she really wanted to do that. She really, really wanted to do that. And one of the adults that she was sitting by, very well intentioned, very great adult, but basically said something to the effect of, "Well, I don't know if that's the right fit for you. Let's pick something else." And then the stubbornness in me, or whatever you want to call it, was like, "No, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna figure this out." And so we did. I called up I called the outfitter who was supplying the canoes and kayaks and all the other equipment. I said, "Okay, here's the situation. Here's the student. How do we make this work?" And so we brainstormed, and we got this big inflatable, like old school tube. They were able to put around her in this specific life jacket, and we got a specific kayak that was a kind of a two-person kayak with quite a bit of back support, and we got her in there and with an adult, and she had the time of her life. And so that was the moment for me where I realized it is all about creating access to opportunities. That is what we need to do. And moving forward with the rest of my life, that's my mission, is to creating access to opportunities. And whatever those opportunities are, it doesn't necessarily matter specifically. It's just, okay, where do we find opportunities and how do we create access to those?
Yeah, that's beautiful because everybody wants to feel connected, and the sense that I get too out of stories like that are just the joy that we get in the simple things that I think a lot of times when life gets going super fast and, people are looking at outcome based and the title and where we want to get, you lose the joy in the simple things. And those kids will bring you back to those moments, and it reconnects anybody to their purpose in life. It's like it's so fundamental instead of being tied up in everything that's so superficial. And that's like what I love about hearing stories like that. And it is that ability to stay dynamic and just go, how do we figure this out? And yeah, it's going to take a little extra effort, right? And then there's that lesson in life. Like most things that are worth having take a little extra effort. So there's so many things that you can take from these experiences that really get back to those simple truths that guide the good life. And that's what I love about this. But is that kind of how E3 Collective got started? I mean, how'd you get from those stories to E3, which is your nonprofit organization that helps create these opportunities for kids?
Yeah, so that was really, I would say, the genesis. That was really what planted that seed. And so from there, I had an opportunity to become a college coach, and that's something I knew I always wanted to do. And
Swimming, right?
I, yeah,
Yep.
swimming.
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct. Yep. And so I took that opportunity, but I did not want to. I didn't want to lose my connection to um, children with special needs. That was something I did not want to lose. And so pretty much almost right away within starting that job, and I had known this for years that the access to more inclusive learn swim opportunities are just they're hard to come by. There's not always a lot of training for instructors, especially when you're talking about you know park and rec summertime instructors who might be 14, 15, 16 years old, and access to just resources as far as lesson planning, curriculum, consulting, and then just some basic equipment. It's just hard to come by, and we had known this had been a problem. It's tends to be a big problem in a lot of communities for a long time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I knew was it was a gap that needed to be filled, and we needed to really bridge that gap. And so almost right away within starting my position as a college coach, I started this adaptive swim lesson, our swim school, and we serve kids of all abilities, but the main focus has been children with special needs, because that is a very underserved population, and we know that drowning is the top, at least the top two causes for accidental deaths in children
Yeah.
with disabilities. And so that was something that we knew we had to fix and be part of the solution. So we started that, and all along the way we talked to so many different parents and heard so many different stories, and the conversation always was, it wasn't necessarily about the swimming, it was about the opportunity. We there They felt like there wasn't a lot of community-based programs that allow, I don't want to say allowed, because there was always the opportunity to register, but true access to the activity wasn't always there, and meaningful participation was not always there. And so hearing these stories time and time again, we just realized, or I just realized that we need to do something about that too. And that's where E3 really started, was, okay, how do we bring parents to the table, all these different professionals in the community to the table, PTs, OTs, speech path, special education teachers, the school district, the university. How do we try to bring all these people to the table to have better conversations? And that was really, really the main goal, was we need to bring everyone together, get on the same page, and create these opportunities. And so I got that started with a parent in the community, Allison Schwab, and her daughters are on the autism spectrum, and we got this thing going. And it's evolved, and it's had many different iterations over the past couple of years, but we feel like we're circling back and getting back to our core mission of creating access to opportunities in the community with those community-based programs, whether it's swimming, whether it's a Ninja Warrior program, which I worked with a group called Ninja U, and they have this amazing Ninja Warrior gym. And I just went up to him and said, "Hey, let's figure this out." And so we got an adaptive Ninja Warrior program going. And
Sweet.
yeah, that is a really cool program. And I was very fortunate that the owners and their staff they're all in, they're all about it. And that was also a pivotal moment for me, because I really realized I don't have to be the content expert per se in everything. I don't have to know everything about Ninja Warrior. I don't have to know everything about tennis or golf or whatever the case is. I don't have to know all the ins and outs. I just have to know how to help people make their program accessible, because they know their program, they know their kids, they know their communities. My job is just to come help them create new doors and then open those doors. And that's really where I feel like my role is now. And I've had a lot of great learning along the way. I worked with an amazing professor out of Auburn University, and a shout out to Dr. P. Hopefully you'll listen to this someday, but she's amazing. And they spent a lot of their time with their graduate students developing programs, doing research around physical education, physical activity based programs. And I had an opportunity to work with her on, and then her graduate students on a tennis program and a swim program. And, it just, again, it kind of opened my eyes to, I don't have to be the content expert.
Isn't that just the most freeing when you have that realization? It opens so many doors. It is such a freeing realization, because I think a lot of people that, have big goals are really well intentioned, and you have this creative brain that thinks, but you think you have to know everything. And it literally holds you back. And then all of a sudden you realize you're just a connector, right? And if everybody does what they do well and you tap into that, what you create is so next level, because you're not relying on just on yourself, which is a microcosm of how the world should work, right? I mean, we should all be doing what we're good at and understanding it deeper, what our gifts are, and then learning how to connect those to the greater world, right? And like, that's exactly what you're describing. And that, for me, that was, I totally second that, because that is a huge realization to, go from potential to performance. And I love that.
Was it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, was it ninjasunited.com? Was that what that was?
Ninja U. So it's out of Cedar Falls, Iowa.
Okay.
Check it out. Yeah.
I was actually just trying to find some pictures.
The program.
I was trying to find like some pictures and stuff like that. So
yeah. So Ninja U. And I can send you guys the Facebook page. They, even after I moved away, they they kept the program going. And it was one of those where it's like, that really reaffirmed, like, okay, there are a lot of people out there who believe in this, want this. I'm kind of there to help facilitate. And I think too, I was trying to scale by learning more about every little thing, and it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
It wasn't
recipe for burnout.
Yeah. It wasn't effective. We just couldn't, you just can't build capacity for every little thing. And instead we really reshifted our focus, and we're building capacity for the inclusive practices. We're building capacity for program design and structure, and really taking in all those considerations to meet unique needs. Because even if I go and help a different swim program, their population is going to look different than ours, and their swimmers are going to look a lot different than ours. And by trying to have this cookie cutter mold, it's just that then we're right back to the problem that we had before. We have programming that's not meeting the unique needs of the group of kids that are right in front of you right now. And that's where we just need to, that's where we really needed to just build capacity for the practices and those inclusive practices and strategies and structures, and then help scale from there by really collaborating with different groups. So that's I
love it.
Kind of been the iteration of E3 to this point.
Okay. Well, you said something, we were having a conversation before we got started here today, and you said something about high performance. And I know I'm not going to get the quote right, but basically how high performance is not limited to certain people. And I'm wondering if we can take it back to that part of that conversation and Your thoughts on this were so brilliant. I wish we had been rolling when you said them.
Oh man, now you're gonna try to make me dig back.
No, but just,
No,
just
but yeah.
how inclusion and high performance are not, how they run together.
We were rolling.
Oh, great. Jason says we have that. So
Oh, perfect. Well,
no pressure
but,
then.
Yeah, okay, no pressure. Good. No, one of the things that we were talking about though is high performance is not limited to really what we see on TV. The gold medalist, the winner of the Masters. I mean, that is high performance, but there's high performance in a lot of ways. And I think for all of us who either have our own children, work with adults, our goal is to help them achieve high performance with where they're at, and meet them where they're at with their abilities and their strengths and their skill sets, and maximize those. And there is so much potential in each individual. And when we're talking about inclusion, and I don't know who said this quote, so I don't want to not give credit where it's due, but they talked about inclusion is not just about physical proximity. It's intentionally planning for the success of all students or all children or all adults. And I think sometimes that's where we get tripped up with inclusion. We just think it's physical proximity. So, okay, we're going to sign this kid up and they end up sitting in the corner, or they sit with an adult. And inclusion is really about planning for the success of all students or all children or all adults, depending on the age group that you're working with. And that's really the mindset that we take, is we're intentionally planning to maximize the strengths and successes of each individual that we work with.
Yeah. And I've seen that on so many levels throughout my parenting journey, from having, a kid that you can see where you bring them in the class and they sit them over on the side and nothing's going to happen, right? And they feel more alienated. And so it's actually causing them to feel more pulled away and, shut down. And when I've seen over the years situations where that opportunity's opened up, and not just the benefit for the child who is deemed special needs, or but the ones who have been brought in, and the change that can go on between them, and the compassion that grows between them, and the life lessons that are learned. It's not just for the child that's being brought in from the special needs side. It's for the rest of society, the rest of the classroom that's learning the perspective of something different that they would never get if it wasn't offered to them. And the way that grows a person, and I mean, it just makes the world a better place, but that compassion, if we don't grow that compassion between these two, this diverse population, it really, it just sets off a whole, line of problems that go from everything from bullying to, just kids who aren't able to learn because they don't feel safe in that classroom or understood. Everybody wants the same stuff. They want to be connected. They want to be understood and felt like people can accept them for who they are. And I don't think that changes on any level, for any person. So,
no, I don't think so either. I think that's the thing, is we all have very similar needs. How those needs get met are going to look different, but how your needs get met versus how my needs get met look different. So I think that's the thing. We have to understand that everyone has these core needs and these core desires as human beings, and how you meet those needs is going to look different, but that's okay. We have to embrace that. And because even within my own 4 children,
that's where I was thinking I wanted to go next, because you have 2 sets of twins.
we do. Yeah, the girls just turned 2 a couple weeks ago. So
the girls turned 2, and then the other 2
boys are about 4.5.
So I have 2 girls and 2 boys. he has 2 girls and 2 boys, but that is a very different existence from what I had 7 years from top to bottom. You have 4 kids in 4 years, basically.
He's just
Yeah,
more productive than you are.
Totally.
He doesn't have time to waste.
No.
Wendy.
Time efficient.
Yes, very efficient. So, what's it been like with your experience, having, I mean, obviously 4 and under that's a tall order for anybody, but it tells me something about your energy level, because look at everything that you're doing, and you're like, oh, and I go home and there's 4 kids under 4 or 4 and under. That's great. That's amazing. But you must have some ideas of how you want to foster this sense of inclusion in your own family and in your children. And I, as a mom with 4 and a child that's my youngest is on the autism spectrum, and it's come such an amazingly long way when I look back to when he was your kid's age versus at 14 where he is now. It's incredible. But there are those experiences that you just as a parent will break your heart. Like, don't come at me. Like, you come at me, fine. You come at my kid, and his siblings feel the same way, right? Like, they'll razz him and whatever and treat him. But the second somebody from the outside world comes at him, they go nuts. So, like, how do you build that inclusion within your own family? Like, to teach your own children to go out in the world and see those opportunities for compassion and connection.
I think it really starts with modeling as parents. I want them to see myself, my wife, being very actively involved in the community. I want my kids to be, involved in the programs that I'm helping. And I think that's the very first place to start, because we're setting the tone, we're setting the culture of inclusion, of acceptance, and not just acceptance, but celebration, and really valuing other people and their strengths and their abilities. And I think it also comes back to modeling, but then also just how you talk in general, not just about, individuals with diverse abilities, but just any individual.
Totally.
If I come home and I'm constantly bragging about this person or that person, or, it's going to become part of the culture within our family that it's okay to look at someone else's deficits and have a problem-focused mindset instead of a solution-focused mindset. And instead of giving people grace, to criticize, mm-hmm. or to not even, to not have that empathy. And so I think those are 2 of the key factors at a very young age that are probably the most important. And then from there, it's just encouraging your kids to get involved. Mm-hmm. If there are opportunities for them to be involved in programs, events, where there's a diversity of kids and adults, just having those experiences where they are comfortable with a lot of different people. Mm-hmm.
And growing that comfort zone, and knowing, like, when we start something, often it doesn't feel totally comfortable, mm-hmm. but giving them that support through that to be able to participate in something like that, and then letting them have questions, but giving them that safe space to ask the question rather than maybe get scared of something that they don't understand and then react, instead of have a place to go and gather more information.
Yeah. One of the best pieces of advice I got from a parent, she wants people to have, she wants kids to come up and ask her daughter or her about her daughter's wheelchair. Why is she in a wheelchair? Why, and young kids are innocent. They're asking because they are genuinely curious. They're not asking to criticize. They're not asking to be mean. They truly want to know. Mm-hmm. And this mom said, I want kids to come up and ask, because then we can have those authentic, real, meaningful conversations. And young kids are going to take it at face value. They're going to say, okay, she's in a wheelchair because of this. It's cool. It's just how life is. They don't think there's any, any other layers to it, which is really, having this conversation with his mom, she said that's what we want. We just want it to be a real authentic conversation, because her daughter does have different needs, and that's okay.
And
But
that's another direction, and something that I'm passionate about putting out there is you talking about that mom. And I think a lot of times, we have to take care of the kids, and as parents, we make sure that our kids, we try to put them in the best situations where they can grow and learn. But there's also an aspect of being a special needs parent that in society, like, to have programs that bring the kids together, but then though you have to realize they also bring the parents together. Because if there's anything that I've written about and that really kind of cuts to the chase of what I'm about, is I know the difference. I know the difference in what it feels like to walk into the gym and have your kid be having an amazing game and being the star, and the way people turn and talk to you and treat you and maybe get you involved in some big conversation that lights you up. And then the difference in, wow, I remember the first time I was on a campus and someone was like, well, they turned the library into a special ed classroom. And it was very like, I felt myself shrink back. And you when you're treated differently, like there, and you need that connection with people, and you need the support especially when that parenting journey is harder, and it's a real thing that I feel like doesn't get talked about very often, but people treat you differently. I mean, in short, like, if you're the star of the team versus a kid who is technically struggling, people treat you different. Even sometimes teachers are afraid they think you're going to come at them, or like you're doing something wrong. There's just so many layers to it. And that is just something that I don't think gets talked about. And I wonder if you have any thoughts on, how to bridge that gap.
yeah, so I think there's a few things. One, I think it's really just bringing people together in authentic ways. We've had a lot of parents comment within our swim program, our Ninja Warrior program, just having other parents to talk to in that moment. I've had parents say, yeah, I thought we were, having a rough stretch, and I met this mom or dad and saw what they were going through with their kids. And it's like, okay, we have it, we feel very fortunate, or whatever the case is. I mean, and not that, and everyone's journey is different, and everyone's journey is hard in different ways. But I think just knowing that you're not alone on the journey.
Absolutely.
I think that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest message. And then, I think it's kind of what we see just in the country and the world right now. We just have to have more authentic, meaningful conversations, that we strip away judgment, we strip away preconceived notions, and we actually listen and not just assume that we're right. And the louder I talk, and the more words I say, and the meaner words I say, and the more I'm insulting, the more I'm right. I think it's really just having those meaningful, collaborative conversations that are solution focused and taking a lot of different perspectives. And I think that those have been, as a teacher, as a coach, as a parent, when you have those conversations that are collaborative, that are solution focused, or that are just empathetic in nature, those are the most productive. Those are where you get the most out of it. And that's something that we've are really striving for. Like with my work with teachers, when we have these IEP meetings, it's about the conversation. It's not about reading off this piece of paper. And and some teachers, might be more nervous than others, and that's normal. But the more you can just have a conversation about their kid, the more meaningful that IEP meeting actually is.
Yeah. And I truly believe going into those, if you go in assuming the best, and then you can always work back from there if you see something that needs to be adjusted. But I think when people go in, less armed and like on guard on either side, whether it's the parent or the teacher or the administrator, everyone's in there to do to do the best thing for the child, it feels totally different. And
Yeah.
I've have friends in different school districts. I've been super fortunate. Hermosa is amazing. And but I have friends that have had different school districts, and those experiences with IEPs can be so different. And the thing, and you're getting to the heart of it, like this is a living document. This is not a stack of papers, because if you treat it like a stack of papers, there is a file that is this thick that I'm like, what am I ever going to do with that? But it's those conversations that happen in those. And, as the kids get older, when they participate in them, wow, that is like some leadership. The first time I saw my child participate in that, he got more out of that meeting. He got things done in that meeting that I hadn't been able to do in 3 years. He was like, I don't talk too much about him, but I was so proud of him. He advocated and said, I want out of this math class because I can do the harder one. And they said, okay, we're going to give you the chance. And you know what? He was right. He's totally doing it. And you have to tap into that. You have to teach them to have that voice, but you need those teachers that are willing to listen and take maybe take a little chance, or maybe, like you said, maybe we will be wrong, but be okay with that. Like, give it a shot. And because you never know. And then the potential that was gained in that one decision, and the confidence that was built, and the learning to advocate for themselves. I mean, those are the life skills. I mean, the way the world is going now, we can Google 100 million things. Memory is not a thing so much anymore. I mean, and I'm not saying like for some people that works great, but if you can know how to access information, that's not the thing anymore. It's the people skills. It's the learning to have self-respect and advocate for yourself and learn how to fit in the world. Because I hate to say it, where we're going, the machines are going to be doing a lot of the stuff that we're teaching. And I look and I go, can I help create a kid that knows how to relate to people, right? And have that heart for humanity. And I think that's possible for everybody. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this chat as much as I am. For more inspiring conversations, go to BeBetterWithWendyJones.com. So these IEP meetings, if the way you approach them, because that's where they're learning, right? In school every day, they're really powerful. But they can also feel like, oh, we're just checking the boxes and we've got 5 of these to do today. And, so I'm wondering, and I can't even remember, is the position that you're serving in now, describe that.
Yeah, so I'm a special education consultant, and so I work out of a couple different school districts and multiple buildings. And a lot of what I do is I support teacher and students through the evaluation process, the re-evaluation process, which happens every 3 years. We do weekly problem-solving meetings for students. I will help consult and collaborate on different things. So we might be looking at the data, or whether it's more anecdotal data or more objective numbers-based data. We'll look at and be like, okay, how do we improve our instructional practices? How do we provide different opportunities? And that's tends to be more instructionally, but then I spend a lot of time, just talking about, okay, how do we make recess more accessible, PE, field trips. I'm part of the significant disabilities team within our agency, and that's where we do a lot of work, whether it's instructional practices, really mindset, philosophies, school structures, we're around really supporting students with significant disabilities. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely love that work. We do, as a team, we do a lot of cool things, a lot of different professional learnings, a lot of different like resource development or resource finding, resource sharing, and really just putting a lot of our time and focus around providing the best opportunities possible in school and out of school, especially as, our kids transition out of high school into, post-secondary, what does that look like? And how do we best, support them to maximize their potential for the rest of their life? And so that's kind of in a nutshell what I do. But then this summer, I'm actually transitioning into a new role, and I'll be doing early intervention. So working with children birth to 3 and their families, and I'm very excited for that. That's going to be a great opportunity.
Yeah, that was a really, when I look back on my own journey, that was a really scary point in life. Having my youngest be the one, where you had this realization that like, wow, this is going to look a little different than what I thought and than what I've been used to. And that support that comes at that age is such a game changer, both for the child and the parents, because having someone in your corner that knows more than you do, because you're just madly researching and trying to figure out, I just remember feeling like I had to do every last thing in 5 years because neuroplasticity at that point wasn't a thing. They were like, okay, you got to get it all in before he's 5 because that's it. And I remember having this feeling of like this door closing, and oh my gosh, that has not been the experience. Like, and hats off to neuroscience. I've learned a lot too, and they are amazing at what is being uncovered every day in that field. But that feeling of like, this is a lifelong journey, and it is what you make it, right? I mean, and it has its moments where you're scared to death or that it gets crazy, but when you have somebody that can help you keep reconnecting to that purpose of like maximizing potential, it's and starting at that young age, because it's a scary time, I think, for parents. So
and it's such a critical time.
Yeah,
we know early intervention works.
Oh,
I mean,
completely.
all the data shows early
Yes.
intervention works, and and I think it's a very exciting time because it, like you said, it provides parents and families support and opportunities for themselves too. One of the things that we do is we do have child outcomes, but we also have family outcomes. So
Yeah.
That's built in for birth to 3. It's called the IFSP instead of the IEP. But it has some similarities. But one of the pieces with the IFSP is it also provides the opportunity for family outcomes. So if there's a specific outcome that the family itself that has a direct impact on the family, we can focus some of our work around that too, which I think is just an amazing thing. And I think it, again, it comes back to helping a family re-envision the potential for their child.
Yeah.
And re-envision the future for their child.
It's a game changer.
Yeah. Just, and maybe you can, speak to this and maybe you have this experience, but, and Allison Schwab, talk about this all the time, that there was a grieving period, and there was a sense of some future thing that was lost when you first, I think her daughters were first diagnosed right at about 2, and she,
are they
she
twins
talked,
or
yeah, twin
twins?
girls, yeah,
Oh wow.
yep.
Okay.
And she talked about there was kind of a grieving period, and then there's this overwhelmed period where you're trying to do all the things. And
both of those places I have been. Yes.
and and then she talked about it's like having all the support systems. And in Iowa we have the AEAs, and so it's something called Early Access, which is our early intervention program. And then she did a lot of different other private therapies and a lot of other different supports, and they were part of our swim program. And so she really talked about having that community of people help her work through those different phases in life. And I think that's
I think that's huge, and I'd be remiss to not mention. So my friend Chrissy Kelly writes this amazing blog. It's called Life with Grayson and Parker, and so she has 2 boys that are both on the spectrum, and she was fundamental for me in how she turned the corner and started focusing on the beauty. And she's like, I'm sure, my boys are on the spectrum, but what she writes about is the beauty of life. And they're woven through the story. And she's, creates this wonder and, calls it the superpower. And her boys are incredible, but she's an incredible mom, right? And her husband's amazing too. But the way she puts the lens on special needs and autism, and it's part of life, but it's not the defining attribute of her life or her boy's life. And yeah, it comes across, it's such a shift to go from, scared and, throwing the everything. And yes, we do seek the things, but you actually have to slow it down and know what you're doing to know what works, right? And I've always told people, like, there is no silver bullet. Okay, you're not going to just take a pill or go to a class and all of a sudden, neurotypical just becomes, and we're focusing on the autism spectrum right now, but I do think there's something about the spectrum that is odd in so many ways. I look at it and go, it's kind of what the world needs. Like the way that, like, it's refreshing to have somebody that will kind of just give it to you straight, or, like I we work with, there are shades of gray, but like the black and white nature and the way they see things and the intuitive nature of, like, I trust this and I don't trust that. And you're like, okay, I know there's something to that. Like, your intuition is spot on, kid, So those kinds of things, when you start looking for those instead of just seeing everything through the lens of, I have to do this therapy and I have to do this therapy. And then the people you meet, I still am in awe of Matthew's first speech therapist because of the gains and how passionate she is about what she does. And I do think you come across that in special education, is the people are so passionate about maximizing potential. And more often than not, I've had way more experiences of really empowering people rather than burnout, and I do know that that's a thing in special education, but man, there are some really incredible teachers that just give it their all. And it's, I love watching it. It's really, really cool. So.
And I think, one of the biggest things, whether it's in a school, it's in the community, as a parent, as a teacher, as, as an individual person, building that community around you is really what helps you down your path and through your journey.
Yeah.
And, we talked about this when you were on the podcast. It's the community that really, at times protects you, at times encourages you, at times tells you what you maybe need to hear instead of what you want to hear.
Yeah.
It's the community that has your back no matter what. And I think that's been the incredible thing being within the special education, special needs world, is that there's this amazing community of people that will go above and beyond to problem solve, will go above and beyond to provide opportunities. And it's empowering. It drives you forward. It really reminds you of why you do what you do. But then as a parent, if one of my kids ever needed something, it's like, that's exactly what I would want.
Yeah.
So, that community of people around you to give your child everything that they need to be successful.
Yeah. And that's like, as I've gone down my path and really explored the meaning behind what I do, and that whole concept of be better is why I went from, the Optimist Journal, and that's still the name of my blog, but this community, this Be Better community, is meant to be exactly what you just described. It's inclusive and excellent at the same time. Like, how do you build that bridge where everybody feels empowered and everybody feels safe enough to be who they are and share their story, and then see how we can all collaborate. because the world feels so competitive a lot of the time. And really, as you grow older and when you look at what you want for your kids, you want them to feel that sense of community and collaboration. And the competition, like, sure, that comes with yourself. I always say, like, compete with yourself, collaborate with your community. And it, like, that, and I always take that back to swimming, by the way. Like, I'm like, you look at your own black line. Do not look at what's going on either side of you. So that's like the swim coach in me. I love that you started with swimming, because I can always bring it back to the pool too. But, yeah, the concept of be better and equip, empower, encourage, like, I see so much of why in this giant world, how you and Iowa, we've never met, but now we've had probably 4 or 5 conversations. I can't wait to talk to your special ed teachers this summer. That's the amazing thing about, podcasting and social media. And there's so much downside, but there's so much upside. Like the ability to expand the world with these ideas, and for people to know that this is out there so that they can grab a hold of it in their own community and then know who to call if they need something. So I guess that's where I would kind of take us towards the end of this, is like, how do people find you, and how can they, connect with what you're doing and be involved if they want to?
Yeah, so we have a website. We're kind of in the process of redesigning it, as you just went through yourself, as it's a process.
The tech. That's why I got Jason here, because the tech, like, I got nothing.
So yeah, we're trying to yeah, so we're trying to redesign and kind of I think simplify is honestly the better phrase. We really want to get back to our core mission, is providing access to opportunities. And so the website's kind of in a little bit of a redesign, but we do, right now we have most of our swimming stuff back up on it. And then we do have we have a couple books that are out. So we
cool.
have,
well, we'll put, yeah, go for it.
Yep. Yeah. So we have Roscoe the Raccoon. It's an illustrated children's book, but it has corresponding physical activity with each page.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a play along with the story kind of situation. So that we've gotten a lot of good feedback about that. And we were able to differentiate it as much as could fit on a page. So children of all abilities could have access to it. And then really just share my email.
Okay.
I'm planning on getting kind of a coaching section up on the website once I get to that point. But please share my email. Anyone who wants to connect, whether it's a community-based program, you have a private program, whatever the case is, I'm here to help, and I'm here to collaborate, and we can get something figured out together.
That's awesome. And I will encourage people to subscribe to your podcast too, because you've got some pretty amazing stories on there. I've listened to other ones besides, not just mine, but the ones that of other parents that have been on these journeys, and they're really inspiring. So I thank you for telling those stories on your podcast. And it's called the E3, your podcast.
You have E3 Collective Podcast.
Okay, cool. So we'll put all of that in the show notes, and I'm just so grateful for the time you took today with your crazy schedule and your 4 little kids. So
thank you. Thank you
very
now,
much.
All the kids are at daycare, so
nice.
So
quiet.
I have some nice quiet time, which is pretty rare.
Good.
So.
Well, enjoy that. We'll let you get to it. Maybe you can get a little bit before they get home. So thanks for being with me.
Thank you so much. I always love talking, and just keep me posted if we can ever have some more conversations.
Sounds good. We'll do it. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for the What I Meant to Say podcast. For more real conversations like this one, come on over to the Be Better community at www.bebetterwithwendyjones.com, a place for athletes and parents to grow and find meaning behind what we do every day, so that we can be strong on our own and better together.